Welcome to Go Fact Yourself, the Top 10 Lists podcast. You've certainly sent us down a rabbit hole this week with your top research, this collection of truly mind-bending moments where science just went completely rogue. We're calling this Top 10 Journey. Top 10 times science strapped on the goggles, said, "Hold my beer," and nearly ended us all. When you look at these stories together, you really see how the pursuit of knowledge can sometimes, well, lead us to some pretty wild places.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating about this top 10 journey is the sheer variety. The motivations, the outcomes, from battlefields to labs. These examples highlight moments where boundaries were not just pushed, but sometimes completely ignored, all in the name of progress or curiosity or sometimes just sheer desperation.
Right. It makes you wonder what drives people to take such extraordinary risks. Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with number 10. Skinner's kamikaze pigeons. Operation coup d'etat, almost.
Oh, yeah.
So World War II is raging, the U.S. military needs better ways to guide missiles, and B.F. Skinner enters the picture.
Exactly. Skinner, famous for his work on operant conditioning, modifying behavior with rewards, he noticed how good pigeons were visually and how trainable. And that sparked a very unconventional idea for missile guidance.
Project Pigeon, or Orcon. So the idea was a pigeon, or actually 3 pigeons for accuracy, inside the missile.
In the nose cone, there's a screen showing the target. The pigeons are trained to peck at the target image.
Pecking steers the missile.
Through some kind of mechanical linkage, yeah. The pecks translate into adjustments to the missile's fins. It sounds completely bonkers.
It really does. But Skinner was applying actual science here, right? His conditioning principle.
Oh, definitely. But think about the practical side. You need pigeon trainers, special little harnesses, mini screens inside a missile getting tossed around.
And your top research says he actually showed this working to the military.
He did. He demonstrated that pigeons could track targets accurately, even with simulated G-forces, loud noises. They actually put about $25,000 into it back then.
Wow. So why didn't it happen? Why no pigeon pilots?
Well, despite the demos, the military was understandably skeptical.
You think?
I mean, the whole idea of a pigeon-guided missile. Reliability questions, logistics, and, let's be honest, the potential public reaction.
Yeah, the PR nightmare. Our boys guided by birds.
Exactly. And then, electronic guidance systems and radar were developing fast, so Project Pigeon got shelved.
But Skinner apparently never gave up on the idea.
No, it seemed he always thought it was viable. It's just a wild example of wartime thinking, isn't it? Creative, but maybe not so practical in the end.
Definitely. Okay, number 9 takes us from pigeons to something, well, much grosser. This Philly doctor had a vomit fetish. For science.
Right. We're talking late 1700s, early 1800s. Philadelphia is getting hammered by yellow fever epidemics.
And nobody really knew how it spread up back then. Miasma, bad air, maybe touching people.
Exactly. Theories were all over the place. And into this steps Stubbins Effirth, a medical apprentice, with a very contrary idea.
His big idea, according to the TOPS research, was that yellow fever was not contagious, which flew in the face of what many thought.
It did. And his method for proving it involved a level of self-experimentation that's just staggering.
Okay, brace yourselves.
Yeah.
He detailed this in 1804. He smeared black vomit from yellow fever patients on himself.
Onto his skin, yes. Even into cuts he made on himself. Dripped it into his eyes, inhaled fumes from it.
Oh my God.
And the pièce de résistance?
Yeah.
He drank it.
He drank the black vomit. Why? What was the logic there?
Well, it was before germ theory, remember? He kept exposing himself and didn't get sick. So his conclusion, flawed as it was that it couldn't be contagious.
But why didn't he get sick? Was it just luck?
It could be several things. Maybe the samples he used were from late-stage patients, less infectious. Maybe it's just not easily transmitted that way through the gut. Or, maybe just pure luck.
But his conclusion was dead wrong. And probably didn't help things.
Definitely not. It took decades before the real culprit, the Aedes aegypti mosquito, was identified by Finley and Reed. Effirth is sort of this weird footnote, incredibly dedicated maybe, but recklessly wrong.
Makes you appreciate modern IRB reviews, right? Okay, moving skyward for number 8. Laika wasn't alone. Russia strapped rockets to dozens of Good Boy.
Yeah, most people know Laika, the first animal in orbit. A tragic story. She was never meant to return.
Right. Sputnik 2, 1957, very rushed. Died from overheating and stress, poor thing. Caused outrage.
It did. But the top research shows she was just one of many. The Soviets preferred stray dogs for these tests, unlike the U.S., which used primates more.
Why strays?
They figured they were tougher, more resilient from living on the streets, easier to train maybe, and perhaps cynically, less public attachment than, say, chimps.
How many dogs are we talking about?
Between 1951 and 1966, the records suggest at least 57 dogs were launched. Many on suborbital flights first, like Desic and Saigon, who actually survived at 51.
And the training, I imagine it wasn't pleasant.
No. Brutal, really. Cramped capsules for long periods, centrifuges for G-force simulation, intense noise, vibrations, trying to mimic a rocket launch.
And many didn't make it back, did they?
A significant number died. That part often gets glossed over in the space race excitement. Laika's death was public, but many others weren't.
But some did survive orbit, right? Belka and Strelka?
Yes. Sputnik 5, 1960. They orbited and returned safely, along with rabbits, mice, rats, a whole arc. Huge propaganda win for the Soviets.
And wasn't there that weird puppy diplomacy thing?
Yes. Strelka had puppies later, and one, Pushinka, was given as a gift to JFK's daughter, Caroline Kennedy, a Cold War puppy.
Strange times. So, vital data for human spaceflight, but at a real ethical cost.
Absolutely. It's a complex legacy. Paved the way for Gagarin, but those dogs were unwilling pioneers.
Really makes you think. Okay, number 7 is another self-experimenter, but this one remarkably worked out in the end. The doctor who played operation on himself and won a Nobel Prize.
This is the incredible story of Werner Forsman, Germany, 1929. He's a young surgical trainee.
And he has this idea about cardiac catheterization, sticking a tube into the heart.
Exactly. For diagnostics, delivering drugs right to the heart. But his bosses strictly forbade any human experiments. Too dangerous.
So naturally, he decides to do it on himself. In secret.
Pretty much. Gathers the gear, a ureteric catheter, anesthetic. He even ropes in a nurse, Gerda Ditzen, but tricks her.
Tricks her how?
He lets her think she's the patient, gets her prepped on the table, then quickly numbs his own arm instead.
The nerve. What did she do?
Apparently, she was shocked, but then helped him. He makes an incision, threads this thin catheter into his own arm vein.
And just keeps going, up towards his heart.
All the way. Apparently used an X-ray mirror to guide it, then walks over to the X-ray department with the catheter still in his heart to get proof on film.
That is just astounding audacity. How did his boss react?
Not well. Furious. He was disciplined, eventually fired. His work was dismissed, even ridiculed for years. He couldn't get a job in cardiology.
Ouch. Nearly career suicide via self-surgery, but it didn't end there.
Thankfully, no. Over time, the value of cardiac catheterization became undeniable. It revolutionized cardiology.
And Forsman.
He eventually got the recognition he deserved, shared the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1956 for developing the technique.
Wow. From ridiculed rogue to Nobel laureate. What a story. Reckless, maybe, but undeniably visionary.
It really is a testament to conviction, I suppose.
All right, halfway through our top 10 journey, number 6 is back to World War II, and it involves bats. Project X-ray, when the U.S. military weaponized bats.
Oh, yes. This one is truly out there. The U.S. military is trying to figure out how to effectively bomb Japanese cities, which were often made of wood and paper, right?
So conventional bombs weren't ideal.
Not for starting widespread fires. And then a dentist, Little Adams, comes up with this idea.
Let me guess. Bats.
Weaponized bats.
Yeah.
Specifically, Mexican free-tailed bats. Millions of them.
Okay. How?
The plan was to strap tiny timed incendiary bombs to each bat, release them over Japan at dawn from planes.
And the bats would, fly into buildings?
Exactly. They'd naturally seek dark places to roost for the day. Attics, eaves, under buildings. Then boom, timers go off, fires start everywhere, simultaneously.
Did anyone actually take this seriously?
Apparently, President Roosevelt himself approved it. Reportedly said something like, "This man is not a nut." They actually started developing the mini bombs and figuring out how to handle and deploy huge numbers of bats.
So they built bat bombs. What happened?
Well, during a test run at Carlsbad Army Airfield in New Mexico in 1943, things went wrong.
How wrong?
A container of bats, already armed with their incendiaries, was accidentally released on the base.
Oh, no.
And the bats did exactly what they were supposed to do,
Yeah.
just in the wrong place. They roosted all over the Army base, under fuel tanks in the barracks.
Eggers.
Yep. The timers went off. The entire base burned down.
They burned down their own base with bat bombs.
Pretty much sums it up. The project was quietly canceled not long after that, in 1944. That, and the fact that the atomic bomb was nearing completion, made bat bombs seem less necessary.
Less necessary and apparently extremely prone to friendly fire.
Bomb.
Okay, number 5. The bullfighter who used mind control and probably freaked everyone out.
This brings us to Jose Delgado, a neuroscientist really interested in electrical brain stimulation. He developed something called the stimoceiver.
Stimoceiver, like a stimulus receiver.
Exactly, a tiny implant that could wirelessly receive signals and deliver electrical pulses to specific brain areas. Remote control for the brain, essentially.
And he used this on a bull.
A fighting bull, yes. In a rather dramatic public demonstration in Cordoba, Spain, back in 1963.
What did he do?
He stood in the ring. The bull charges him. Delgado pushes a button on a transmitter he's holding. The bull just stops, dead in its tracks, skids to a halt right in front of him. There's film of it. It's pretty startling.
Like flicking an off switch on aggression.
That's certainly how it looked and how Delgado presented it. He wrote a book, Physical Control of the Mind, arguing this tech could maybe control aggression, create a more psycho-civilized society.
I bet that went over well. Mind control.
It definitely freaked people out, raised all sorts of fears about dystopian futures, government control, loss of free will.
Were the critics right? Was it really mind control?
Critics argued it was probably more like disrupting motor control or maybe inducing confusion or pain rather than controlling the bull's actual intent or thoughts. But still, directly manipulating brain function remotely.
Yeah, the ethical implications are huge regardless. Fascinating and creepy.
Very much so. Which leads us nicely into number 4, another ethically complex story from the Soviet Union, when Soviet science tried to make human ape babies. Seriously.
Human ape babies, you mean? The hybrid, a human Z.
That was the goal, yes.
Yeah.
This was the 1920 Soviet Union. Big push for scientific achievement, proving atheistic, materialistic worldviews.
And someone thought creating a human ape hybrid fit that bill.
A biologist named Ilya Ivanov did. He was actually known for his work in artificial insemination in animals like horses. But this was a huge leap.
And the government funded this.
They did. Gave him backing to go on an expedition to French Guiana in 1926.
To do what?
The initial plan was to capture female chimpanzees and artificially inseminate them with human sperm.
Whose sperm?
That's a bit murky. Possibly anonymous local donors, maybe even Ivanov considered using his own sons. The reports vary.
Okay. Did it work?
No. He had trouble capturing and keeping the chimps healthy. The insemination attempts failed.
So he gave up.
Not quite. He shifted tactics. Plan B was to bring apes back to the Soviet Union to a facility in Sukhumi and try the reverse. Inseminate human female volunteers with ape sperm.
Wait, women volunteered for this?
According to the records, yes. At least 5 Soviet women supposedly volunteered.
That's unbelievable. What happened then?
The project kind of fell apart. His main potential ape sperm donor, an orangutan named Tarzan, died. And then Ivanov himself got caught up in Stalin's political purges.
Ah.
He was arrested around 1930, exiled, and died a couple of years later. The whole Human Z project died with him.
What a bizarre, unsettling detour in scientific history. Driven by ideology as much as science, it sounds like.
Very much so. A strange intersection of ambition, politics, and questionable ethics.
Definitely. Okay, number 3 is a character who perfectly blends brilliance and, well, strangeness. Jack Parsons. Rocket god, occult sex wizard, accidental bomb maker.
Jack Parsons is fascinating. A genuine pioneer in American rocketry. Co-founder of JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, developed the first castable solid rocket fuel, crucial stuff.
So a brilliant scientist, but the occult sex wizard part.
Yeah, alongside his rocket science, he was deeply involved in Aleister Crowley's Thelema religion and was a leader in the California branch of the Ordo Templi Orientis, the OTO.
He was practicing ritual magic while building rockets.
Absolutely. Believed he could contact spirits, perform effective magic. It wasn't just a hobby, it was central to his worldview.
And the top research mentions the Babylon working with L. Ron Hubbard.
Yes. In 1946, Parsons and Hubbard, before Scientology, performed these intense sex magic rituals together, trying to invoke or manifest the goddess Babylon.
The founder of JPL and the founder of Scientology doing sex magic.
Okay.
Did they think it worked?
Parsons did. He met Marjorie Cameron shortly after and believed she was the incarnation of Babylon they had summoned. She became his partner.
This lifestyle, did it affect his scientific career?
Oh, definitely. His open embrace of the occult, his increasingly erratic behavior. He eventually lost his security clearance, got pushed out of the mainstream rocket community he helped build.
What did he do then?
Continued doing independent chemical research, including work with explosives, in his home lab.
And that didn't end well, did it?
No. He died in a massive explosion in that home lab in 1952. Officially ruled an accident, but given his life, Rumors of suicide or even assassination have always lingered.
What a life. Science and mysticism crashing together. Just incredible.
A truly unique figure. You couldn't make him up.
No kidding. All right, number 2. This one hits closer to home for some, maybe. Your grandma might have been a CIA acid trip guinea pig. Seriously, Project M culture.
Yeah, this is dark territory. Cold War paranoia is peaking. The U.S. is terrified of Soviet brainwashing, truth serums, mind control techniques.
So the CIA decides they need to develop their own.
Exactly. Project M Cultura starts in 1953. It's top secret, run by Sidney Gottlieb, sometimes called the CIA's poisoner-in-chief. The mandate was incredibly broad.
What kind of things were they trying?
Everything. Truth serums, creating amnesia, hypnosis, ways to discredit people, coercion methods, and a huge focus on LSD.
Acid.
Tons of LSD research, often funded secretly through universities, hospitals, even prisons. And often the subjects had no idea they were being experimented on. No consent.
No consent. They were just dosing people.
In many cases, yes. One of the most infamous parts was Operation Midnight Climax. The CIA set up brothels, lured men in, and dosed them with LSD without their knowledge to observe the effects.
That's horrifying. Just random people off the street?
Unwitting citizens, yes. Countless individuals drugged without consent, and sometimes with tragic results, like Frank Olson, an Army scientist working with the CIA who was secretly dosed, became unstable and fell or was pushed to his death.
And it wasn't just LSD, right?
No, they explored hypnosis, sensory deprivation, electroshock, other drugs, psychological torture. They even brought in former Nazi doctors who had done human experiments and hired a stage magician to teach agents how to slip drugs to people unnoticed.
This sounds like something out of a conspiracy thriller, but it was real. How did it come out?
Extreme secrecy. They destroyed most of the files in 1973. But investigations later, especially the Church Committee hearings in the 70s, exposed a lot of it. A truly shocking abuse of power and ethical failure.
Unbelievable. A stark warning about unchecked secret programs.
Absolutely.
And that brings us to number 1 on our top 10 journey. A story about how a scientific marvel became a deadly fad. Radium, the miracle cure that made people glow in their graves.
Ah, radium. Early 20th century, it's discovered, it glows, it gives off energy, and almost immediately, it's hailed as this magical health elixir.
People thought it was good for you.
Oh, yeah. Total radioactive quackery took off. You could buy radium-infused water like Radithor, radium chocolates, radium bread, toothpaste, cosmetics, even radium suppositories.
Suppositories? What were they supposed to do?
Enhance vitality, cure everything. It was miracle hype, pendants to wear, blankets, even radium injections. Anything to get that healthy glow.
But the darkest part of this is the Radium Girl story, right?
Definitely. These were young women, mostly, working in factories, painting watch dials with glow-in-the-dark radium paint.
To make them glow at night.
Right, and to get a fine point on their brushes, they were instructed by the factories to lick them. Lip pointing, they called it.
They licked brushes dipped in radium paint hundreds of times a day.
Yes, and they're told it was harmless. But radium is chemically similar to calcium, so when they ingested it, their bodies deposited it in their bones.
Oh, God, what did that do?
Horrific things. Severe anemia, spontaneous bone fractures, and this condition called radium jaw, where their jawbones literally crumbled and decayed. Excruciating pain, bone cancers.
Did the companies know it was dangerous?
Evidence suggests they suspected or knew, but they denied it for years. Commissioned bias studies saying it was safe.
But the women fought back.
They did. The Radium Girls sued their employers. It was a huge landmark fight. They faced down the companies and biased medical opinions.
Yeah, and they won.
Many eventually won settlements, though often too late for their own health, but their struggle was crucial. It led to major reforms in occupational safety laws, established workers' rights regarding workplace hazards. Their suffering literally changed labor law.
So they died tragically, but their legacy helped protect future workers.
Exactly. It's a heartbreaking story about the danger of embracing scientific wonders without understanding the risks. That initial excitement blinded people.
Wow, what a top 10 journey that was. From kamikaze pigeons and vomit cocktails to space dogs, self-surgery, bat bombs, mind control, human Z projects, rocket wizards, CIA acid trips, and finally, glowing watches of death.
It really covers the spectrum, doesn't it? Curiosity, ambition, desperation, wartime pressure, sometimes just sheer hubris, maybe. It shows science isn't always a neat linear path. It can be messy, dangerous, ethically fraught.
It absolutely can. We hope this top 10 journey gave everyone a new perspective on just how wild the path of progress can be. What stood out most to you? Any other Hold My Beaker moments you think deserve a spot? Let us know. Share, rate, follow, and go fact yourself. And remember, sometimes the wildest truths are definitely stranger and frankly scarier than fiction.